Presidential candidate Nikki Haley. Ambassador, thanks for joining us today. Great to see you. So what should we be doing this beyond our southern border?
Well, first of all, I think you have to go back to last week, right? I mean, I think we had a border bill. Now, securing our border should be priority number one. But you had two things go wrong. One is you look at that border, and while it increased asylum laws, I think that's hugely important. That's the reason 3 million illegal immigrants came in under Trump's watch. We need to strengthen asylum laws. It didn't go far enough on the Remain in Mexico policy, and it had a 5,000 person threshold, which we don't want either one of those. But the problem is Congress shouldn't leave until they fix it, strengthen it, and pass it out, period. The idea that they would just give up and leave is wrong. The second thing is, Trump never should have come in and said, don't pass anything until the general election. It only takes one person for a 9/11 moment. The idea that he wants us to wait until November to do something is irresponsible. He's got to quit thinking about him, and he's got to start thinking about what we need to do to secure the border. And it's the southern border and it's the northern border.
Now, Governor, you've talked a lot about the border czar, Kamala Harris, on the campaign trail and in interviews. She was the subject of a rather lengthy article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, which said in part of Ms. Harris, "I am ready to serve. There's no question about that," Ms. Harris told the Wall Street Journal in an interview last week. "Everyone who sees her on the job," Ms. Harris said, quote, "walks away fully aware of my capacity to lead." But listen to what a former Biden official told Axios about this. Quote, "A former Biden administration senior official told Axios she has been at best ineffective and at worst sporadically engaged and not seeing it was her responsibility. It's an opportunity for her, and she didn't fill the breach." I assume talking there about the border czar job. What do you think about this idea of Kamala Harris coming out saying, "I'm ready to serve"?
I mean, first of all, look, she was offered the opportunity to not only serve, but to lead on the border. She didn't do that. She was given the opportunity to lead on artificial intelligence, and we're behind the curve on that. But this is what I will tell you, John. There will be a female president of the United States. The hard truth is it will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. If you look at any of those general election polls, Trump loses to Biden. I defeat Biden. There was another Marquette poll that showed Wisconsin. I defeat Biden by 15 points. Trump can't defeat Biden. But even look at what happened last week. Trump loses the court case on immunity. They lose the bill on Mayorkas. They lose the bill on Israel. And you have the RNC chair lose her job. That's all losing because Trump had his fingerprints on all of it. He lost in 2018. He lost in 2020. He lost in 2022. How many more times do we have to lose before we realize that he's actually the problem? And now you go and you look at what he did with the RNC yesterday. Now, when he tried to have the RNC name him the presumptive nominee and they wouldn't do it and he had to pull back. Now he's going and changing out leadership so that it's somebody that he prefers and his daughter-in-law to co-chair. He's putting his campaign manager as the director. Are we going to let him just take over the party that's going to control the convention too? At what point do we not see the problem? We don't have kings in this country, but we have to be part of the solution to stop it.
Ambassador, you were at the center of a discussion around the table with the ladies on The View yesterday, and we wanted to give you a fair chance to respond to this. Listen.
She's not going to be the nominee either. She needs to take several seats.
My bet is that in 12 days, she's going to get beaten like a bongo drum in her home state by Donald Trump.
Nikki, what have you done? What have you done? Really? What can you point to?
Obviously, you have a chance to respond to that question and those thoughts right now.
Well, I've done quite a bit. I will tell you, as governor, we accomplished a lot. As UN ambassador, we accomplished a lot. I did a whole lot more than Whoopi Goldberg will ever do. And it is not the ladies on The View that I ever care to impress. At the end of the day, I'm fighting for every American's vote. This is a chance to get our country right. The party that leaves their 80-year-old candidate behind is the party that will win. Mark my words. It is hugely important that we get a new generation generational conservative leader in the White House that leaves the baggage and the negativity behind. We have a chance to do it. We're going to do it in South Carolina, but we've got to make sure we look at it in every other state, because this is a country in disarray and a world on fire. And
Governor,
chaos follows Donald Trump. We have to put an end to that.
Governor, we're within 2 minutes of the president talk. I just wanted to ask you one last question, just on that whole point of South Carolina. New CBS poll shows that Donald Trump is 35 points ahead of you now. He's increased his lead. And here's a question I have. We're just a little more than a week away from South Carolina. At the moment, it looks like you're going to go into that contest and lose badly in your home state, which would forever be a cloud over your political career. Why go through with it?
So first of all, that's what they said before New Hampshire, and I got 43% of the vote. Our polls do not show that. That is not what we're seeing, and we're going to close that gap. But more than that, you're asking me about my political career. That's the problem with politics. Donald Trump's worried about his image. Joe Biden's worried about his image. I'm not worried about mine. I'm worried about the future of America. I'm worried about my kids and what country they grow up in. I'm worried about your kids and what country they grow up in. This isn't personal. It's not about me or what happens to me. This is about the fact that if we don't see how bad this can get, it's already bad. If we don't become part of the solution and realize that we can change it, that's the problem. I will say again, don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this primary, because Donald Trump cannot win a general election. He's already said he's going to spend more time in court than on the campaign trail. He spent $50 million of campaign contributions towards his personal court cases. The RNC is broke. We Republicans will not win if you continue down this path. The reason Donald Trump wants me to get out so badly is because he wants help paying his court fees. That is not the job of the RNC. That's not the job of taxpayers.
All right. Ambassador Haley, we always appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.